Namaste and in Lak'ech, and welcome to this episode of One World in a New World. I'm your host, Zen Benefiel, and this week's guest is Floris Slob. He is an organizational bricoleur, an author, and he's traveled through many countries in roles that have helped organizations grow and prosper. He's also a member of the Octopus movement, which is where we met. We're going to have an awesome conversation and a deep dive. Stick with us. We'll be right back.
Explore the thoughtless sphere. Embark on a life-changing journey of self-discovery. Embrace harmony with self, with others, with Earth. One world in a new world. Zen Benefiel skillfully ignites conversations, guiding guests to reveal personal journeys and perspectives. Listeners are inspired to seek knowledge and find wisdom in their own lives. Join this transformative journey as we navigate the depth of human experience.
Floris, it's so great to have you here. We've been associated with the Octopus movement for quite some time and had some exchanges through it, and I've been really looking forward to this conversation. Thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to it as well. I mean, your how do you say it? Your reputation precedes you.
Well, thank you so much.
Uh,
Um, in our conversations for One World and a New World, we like to look at this near disparity between the inner and outer worlds that we are bereft of being able to create bridges for. We don't talk about what's going on inside of us. So we're bereft of those conversations because they make it seem weird or crazy, insane, because when you're so connected to that inner world and you talk about it to others who aren't, it they just can't relate because there's no direct experience to it. So what I'm hoping to do through these conversations is to provide more of a playground for people to explore, listen, ask questions of themselves, and dive deeper into their own lives to find safety and security, right? So in that, when I know with your background, you've been in multiple countries, you're kind of an operational bricoleur, if you will, or operations bricoleur, and how you help others grow into their ability to perform. So that had to have started long time ago. We've had some brief discussions about your interconnectivity, but when did that start? What do you remember of your first experience of recognizing there's more than just the physical world in your experience?
ooh, there is more than the physical world. I think I was, I think I'm a very particular case. I'm really a hard case as well, to be honest, because despite the experience that I had at a very young age that we shared briefly. I mean, for the people that are watching, I was drowning at nearly 2 years of age. I was reanimated. At 4 years of age, I was in a coma for a couple of days after I was driven over by a motorcycle. So my brains were literally on the street, and everybody was fearing for my capacity to actually live life to the fullest.
Hmm.
And when I was 6, I mean, I went through a kitchen window fully with my body where I only had one piece of glass in my body, which stopped right at my main artery. So at least I knew from a very young age I was not allowed to die. I had to live.
And
That
you
is
live dangerously too.
that is something that I do remember. And the accident, while I was growing older, the accident became less important. With some few exceptions at a much later age, around my
Hmm.
30th. But the first time, I think that apart from these miracles, basically, but I was too young to fully grasp the miracle here that I survived each time, I guess. Uh,
Strong
the,
spirit.
the first time that I was truly experiencing something that I could not explain, I think I must have been in my later 20s, quite late.
Hmm.
I realized that, but it was really a strong wake-up call. It was a very
What was
strong
that
wake-up
like?
call.
What were the events around it?
The event was I was living in the Netherlands in a town next to a good friend of mine that became a good friend of mine. It was at that time a neighbor, and we were having food exchange and meals exchange during the week because we were both still students. I
Hmm.
was in the thesis phase of my second studies, and I was often home. And yeah, he decided to invite the woman that saved him from a fugitive camp in the Netherlands because he was from Bosnia Herzegovina,
Okay.
and to meet that person because it was a very important person in his life. And this woman brought that night tarot cards, believe it or not, but she brought tarot cards, and she said, "Hey, I'm pulling tarot cards already for 25 years. Shall we do a game of tarot cards?" And everybody said yes in the room, except for me. I said, "No, I don't play that shit. No,
Yeah.
no, no, forget about
Nah,
it.
that's not for me. Right.
That's, I will watch you, but I'm not going to do anything." So she
Yeah.
started to play with the others, with my friend, with my partner at that time. And I was watching. And then when they were done, and then she said, "Are you sure that you don't want to do a game?" And then everybody was pushing me and said, "Well, okay, okay, I will just participate. Just come here with those cards." Well, you just
Hmm.
have to take three cards, and let's see what happens. So I draw three cards, and one of the cards was the Emperor. And the moment I turned that card around and she saw it was the Emperor, she was asking me the question, and while asking me the question, something really, really, really weird was happening. So she was going to ask me, has there been or was there anybody very, very important in your life? And so I was just telling me I was writing my thesis on my second studies, and the
Hmm.
person that always pushed me forward in the past as a child and as a teenager was my grandfather. He was said, as one day you will have done so many studies, you're going to be brilliant, and blah 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 blah. So she was saying, and then when I told her, I said, "Yeah, I think you mean my grandfather." And then she says, "He is here right now." And then I said, "Sorry, yeah, he is here right now." And when she repeated it, I just remember the eyes of the woman. I just remember my own eyes. I just remember this deep contact that I was having with her. She said, "Wait, he is spelling his name." So you would say, okay, she could have read my family name when entering the door, and she would just spell that, but it was the father of my mom. So it was on the mother's side, and we in the
Right.
Netherlands, we don't carry that name at all. It was the first time I met her, and when you hear the name, it is definitely not a name that you just pick and you speak that out. So she was spelling it. So ACQUOY. And I said, "What?" Said, "That's my grandfather. That's his
Yeah. How
name."
did
And
you
she
know
said,
that?
"Yes,
Where have you been?
yes."
What records have you been looking at? Did you research
And,
me? Have
and
you
she
been
and
stalking
she
me? Right.
and she was sharing stories about him and me. She said, "Yeah, he remembers you so well. He's so proud of you, and he remembers you were so little that he was showing you the outcome, the results of the Tour de France, the cycling in the newspaper. You were always watching sports together when you visited him, when you brought a daily newspaper, because he remembers that he was always ill, so somebody had to bring the newspaper for him, and that was you."
So
And
she
and
really provided a lot of detail for
she
you.
she really and I was really And suddenly, boom, like it looked like, okay, somebody turned on the switch again. And I was really like, wow, what just happened? What just happened here? And you know what I did? As a real disbeliever believer,
Right,
the
right.
next day I bought tarot cards, and the next day I was playing tarot cards all day instead of just seeing, is it
I
gonna
mean,
happen again? What's happening
sure,
today?
sure. Now, I've always they're really the cards because when I went through my kerfuffle as a teenager and it was a year before I was institutionalized. I had saw a psychiatrist and it was amazing. He said after the third visit, he said, "You're not crazy. You've had a spiritual awakening. You've got all the signs. My advice would be to keep your mouth shut because nobody's going to understand you." I was 18 at the time, right?
Yeah.
Pre-med program at college. And then he says, I want to show you something. Come here. And he had his office in a two-story home in downtown Anderson, Indiana, here in the States. And at the top of the stairs, there was a door. He opened it up, and my heart just exploded. And I was like, wow, that's weird. And the whole room was filled with metaphysical stuff, things hanging from the ceiling, bookshelves,
Mhm.
and right inside the door was a card table with two chairs and a deck of tarot cards on them. And I'm looking at those and looking at him like, man, this is really weird because you're not supposed to have this stuff. You're like, you know, westernized. This is different because I knew
Yeah.
about tarot cards, right? And he says, you know what those are? And I said, yeah, they're tarot cards. He says, well, do you know what they're used for? I said, yeah, you ask questions and they help you find answers. So he said, have you ever had your cards read? And I said, no. He said, would you like to? I said, absolutely. Right? I'm not going to pass that opportunity up. So kind of same thing. Um, Only it was a bit more expansive and he brought out stuff that I knew and that he didn't. Um, and he was really kind of perplexed by it all, and as was I. And he said, again, I wouldn't talk to anybody about this stuff because they're not going to understand you. Well, what I learned later, much later, was that it's quantum physics, right? It's the energy that is available when you allow yourself, you have the intention of being interconnected. You're there to serve the other. You want to help
Yeah,
them.
exactly.
So you become this open conduit. And depending on the level of your practice in developing the gift,
Mm.
determines how much you're able to share and how deeply you're able to tune into another and share. Because consciousness doesn't dissipate, right? It's always there. It changes
Mm. Yeah.
form, right? Your ancient book calls it repersonalization when there's a return of that consciousness into a physical form. We call it reincarnation as well. But those kinds of things it's an amazing science when you understand it at that level. We haven't been able to until recently because we haven't had the ability to dive into the quantum world like we have recently.
Yep.
So in
But
that, it opens up a lot of opportunities and reduces the fear, right? And of the unknown, of these weird things that happen when you recognize that there's going to be a place in you. Let me ask you this. Was there a place in you in that moment that felt connected from a very pure place?
yeah, I mean, I was absolutely connected in that moment, and I was emotional because my grandfather died already then. I mean, he
Mhm.
was he was gone already for a number of years, and he was my best pal. And we had some unfinished business, at least in my mind. Uh, Before he died, I never went to see him because he was very ill and he had lost 20 kilos or so, 20 kgs, 40,
Sure.
40 pounds. And my mom had shared at that time with us, we were still children, and said, hey, would you like to see your grandfather for the last time? And I remember I was playing video games. I was 13, 14 years old or so.
Hmm.
And I was going for a new record in video games. And I said, do we really have to come? Do we need to go? Because just well, and then she gave me the excuse not to come, and I regretted it for not for all my life, but I regretted it up till the moment that I realized at some stage in my life that he was still around me,
Hmm.
that we have been talking together, and that I have, he saw I was beating myself up for it, and
Right.
I was creating a cancer in the lungs that he died on, basically, to go a couple of levels deeper right away. Uh, and so he wanted to reverse that. And so he needed a conduct also to speak with me. And so that happened much later in life. But that
Sure.
was that moment. So I was very emotional when that first time happened. I was crying. And yeah, I mean, my heart
Well, yeah,
was
because
really,
there's
really
that.
heavy. It was really my heart, and my heart was really, really, really heavy. It was with so many mixed emotions, you
Hmm.
know. And at that time, I did not have the reflex to talk about that moment because I felt so ashamed as an adult. Yeah, because there was other people sitting there, even my partner. I could not confess, you
Sure.
know.
Sure.
So I simply couldn't. No.
Yeah, and the words probably, it's ineffable in that place, especially in the moment of experience, because it's so expansive. How do you put that into words? How do you
Yeah.
explain to another all of those intricately woven thoughts that all of a sudden just explode inside of you as this
Hmm.
process is happening?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's
So
impossible. So not impossible. It takes years of catharsis, right, to be able to go back and revisit and talk about what happened in those times. Um, Now, after that, how did you carry that forward?
well, I think as I said in the beginning, I was really like, okay, let me learn tarot cards. This is amazing. This is fascinating. But since nothing happened, uh, that curiosity died for the tarot cards. But something,
So you were looking to the cards instead of yourself, right?
yes,
You
exactly,
were placing the energy, the power, the
exactly.
source into the
S-
cards rather than in yourself. When you have those two beings together, who was it that said, "Where two or more are gathered, there am I also," right? That I am presence is that access to infinite intelligence that filters through however it needs to in the moment.
No, I was not right away there by saying, okay, I can change whatever I like to believe, whatever I like to see. I was not there at all yet. Really, I was pretty much a very, very different type of person. But I do remember that something had changed inside. There was a seed planted, and that seed helped me when I, like 3, 4 years later, started to travel around the world.
Hmm.
So when I lived in South Africa, when I lived in Mexico, I mean all these vibrant places with their own type of mysticy, spirituality,
Right.
magic, maybe even. I mean, I was really much more fascinated now. In the past, I would have said, "Oh, there's the town medicine man. Why don't you go have a chat with him?" And then in the past, I would have said, "No, no, forget about it. I don't need to see anybody like that." But now I was like, "Oh, yeah, why not? Let's just go and
Now you're
see."
curious, right?
So it really aroused a lot of curiosity. It was the seed that was planted then that must have grown inside, and I was not actively looking for it, but because I was in those different countries where things are more open and more common, with especially with native people, uh, yeah, you
Well,
you
let me
just
ask you
walk
this.
more easily
Where were
into
you at
it.
with your intention? Okay. In those times, during those times, were you kind of intrinsically, not necessarily consciously thinking about it a lot, But your core intention was to be curious, to find out, to enter those worlds that are a bit more, let's say, metaphysical
Yep,
than others, right? There, because that, for me, I had that experience. It's like when things like that happen, it's like, how'd that happen? What's going on? I want to explore more, and what you're seeking is also seeking you, we find out, right?
yep,
As
yeah, sure.
experiences take place. When you moved into your more professional realms, how did that affect you in that curiosity and connecting with others and being your own conduit? Because from our conversation and from looking at your history and all these different places you've gone to and the organizations you've helped, there's got to have been something inside of you that was part of that you carried forward. What was that like? How did you first notice that?
Well, first I noticed it from a more low energy perspective.
Hmm.
That happened in Mexico while I had my girlfriend with me at a time while working for a big multinational company. We lived 1 year in Mexico City, me together with the rest of the team of consultants, and I was the project manager. And I was still very young. I mean, the consultants I had to manage, they were probably they were much more experienced than me, but somehow I had a better papers to organize people and structure people together and get the results. So I had
That's
that
an art
hat,
in itself.
and which is not an easy task because those people they know what they are talking about. So in order to have some valid conversation, so they start to believe in you as they allow them they allow you to manage them. That that's a period
Trust
of
building.
somehow, yeah, trust building,
Yeah.
unwritten probation period for the project manager, because on paper I was it, but I shouldn't use my authority to
Right. You
to
still
to
had to
show them.
pass, you had to
Yeah,
pass the filters of others.
yeah. But however, those people, they were all single, they were all coming alone. And somehow at some stage I met a village doctor, call it a village doctor,
Hmm.
in Mexico in one of our weekend trips. And he was warning me for uh, for my colleagues that there was a lot of jealousy around me, and that was draining me, and that I needed to protect myself, and that all this kind of things. And then I said, oh shit, I'm going like 400 kilometers away from where I'm living. There's this medicine doctor. He's telling me all of this. Okay. I was more like, okay, let's see if that's real or not. But I took his medicine with me. I mean, it just costed a couple of pesos to actually cleans my home each time. He said, each time, that if people been inside your home, just cleans it and make sure it's always around the door area, the main
Hmm.
entrance, that's always protected. He said it's just better for you because people, they are jealous. And I said, okay. I said, well, thank you. I mean, and I didn't do
Sure.
so much with
That
it, but
jealousy, do you find,
yeah.
if I pause you for a second and go into the jealousy side of it, do you find that that's a pretty common experience when you're in a leadership role and that is something that you have to gently expose and prove that there's no need for it? And in so doing, what's the methodology for that? Right? Because I know you've had to address this on multiple places.
Yeah, but I guess this was my first time ever I was a project manager, so I didn't really know what to do. I was not prepared for it. I didn't have any education for it. It was just they literally looked at our CVs. Who's going to be the project manager? He. It was anonymous. He. So that was it. But I didn't have time to prepare. I didn't get any internal training whatsoever. They just
You're
sent
just
me on a
thrown
plane
right
to Mexico
in.
and just do it, do it. Make sure that we're not
That's
getting
often the best way. You just throw, you get thrown into a situation and you just have to learn to ask the right questions to navigate through it.
I still believe this experience was one of my best project management experiences ever. But the jealousy, I never felt it really on the level of profession. I felt it more at the level of life,
Mm,
life with my partner, life with other things. Not so much on a level of that. And I also believe in my future roles as project manager with the consultants. Even I had to agree with the consultants that a project manager could rarely succeed, could rarely have success, true success, because it's always a team effort. But when it goes wrong, it is the project manager.
sure.
So it was it was not really something that I loved to do, but somehow it happened to me and I didn't have the balls to say, no, no, I don't want to be a project manager. I said, okay, yeah, sure, I will do it if nobody else wants to do it. It was more like this because I only have been doing projects all my life. It was always a project structure. Sometimes,
Sure.
okay, hey, you have the matrix organization that you have a project inside a big company where you have the hierarchy of the organization, and on top of that you have the project structure. So you have to deal with you are the boss of the project, but still the people in your project team, they could still have different managers and they have something to say about it too. So
Hmm.
that makes it only more complex. But I don't believe that in this type of roles, people would be jealous at me, to be honest. It was just that first time when I was curious and when I start to see things or starting to experience things for a better way, that was there and it was based on negativity. But the other thing that happened, and that was really weird, that is the weirdest thing. And it's so funny that we talk today. This is a Dutch book. I don't know if you can. I don't know if no,
That
you
doesn't
cannot
show
see it.
up.
So
Nope.
so it has a Dutch title, Flow and the Art of Doing Business. This is a book that I bought just before I left the city where I had this first experience with the tarot cards. Then I lived 1.5 years somewhere else before I went to Africa and then to Mexico. And the only book that I packed in my luggage was this book.
Hmm.
So so when you look at it, it's about the state of flow, and you have two trainers, and they're the best salespeople at that moment in the Netherlands. And that was it. I never read anything more than the backside of the book. And then in Mexico, I started to read it. What was the content? Quantum physics.
Okay.
Everything was about quantum physics. There was
Sure.
nothing normal. There was nothing
Right.
normal.
Well,
But I
with
learned something, but I learned something very important in that book for me at that moment. I didn't understand half of it yet, although it was in my own language. Uh, but what I did learn was the only thing that truly sells is being your authentic you.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi kind of started that flow ball rolling, if you will. And you may be familiar with his seminal book, Flow, The Psychology of Optimal Experience, right? And this is where, maybe you ought to come up with, maybe your nickname ought to be Flow. Because that's what you're all about. That's what you're seeking and being able to create that not only for you, but in the groups, the
Yeah,
work groups,
yeah.
is that's imperative. And eventually when you, as a servant leader, which is what I think is really what's coming, it's another new label for managerial styles or leadership styles, right?
Yeah.
It's like interpersonal skills in the 80s became emotional intelligence in the late 90s and early 2000s. and is still now, finally today, being really talked about, and
Mhm.
because it's necessary in a leadership role. You're there to serve the team, not the team serve you.
Yep.
And
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
the flip
exactly.
of the old management style. It's no longer a command and control, it's a collaboration. How did you
Yes.
find that evolution? Because I know starting earlier, you would have experienced the old, the command and control kind of environments that
Oh
have
yeah, yeah, yeah.
jealousy.
Absolutely.
How have you noticed the transition from where you were then to what's happening now? Because now you're being drawn on the world stage, if you will, to present this energy of being or energy of business to groups, to open them up to this quantum realization and how it actually works.
Yeah. So what would you like to know
How have you
first? Because
noticed the shift? And if you could describe kind of the phases that you noticed as you have been
mm,
moving through and evolving in your own leadership.
well, I really think that that part has always been present in my life. For starters, because I never believed in school. I never believed in anything what people told me what I had to do. I never believed in work either. Not the way how it was presented to me. And I know, I realize now why, hence the reason why both of you probably met in the octopus movement, because they are trying to make that into a different type of service than education and work at the moment looks like.
Sure.
We're trying to help the world
Well,
with our more nonlinear thinking, and and I'm pretty sure that as a collective we will succeed in big parts of that because we
absolutely.
are everywhere. We are a positive virus spreading the world,
Very
and
true. And we're
and
proving that nonlinearity is impeccably pure, right? It's factual. When you just consider the very low level of activity on the physical world, you and I are on a planet that's spinning. We're moving through a solar system that's spinning. We're
yeah,
moving through in a galaxy that's spinning.
yeah,
Well, okay, so let's back that down to the micro level. That's the macro level. Let's break it down to the micro level. The natural formation of things is nonlinear,
yeah,
mostly spirals. We see the Fibonacci sequence in nature now, right? That's
yeah.
being called. It's like it's everywhere.
You see it in you see it in my logo too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And in science and spirituality, therefore, are now bridging because it makes sense. You know,
yeah,
this,
yeah, yeah,
this understanding from the Vedas that we had from 15,000 years ago, the poems that were presented that basically, in a nutshell, if I may paraphrase appropriately, were divine threads incarnate, connected to source, capable of God consciousness. Now, what's that really mean, right? When you hear that, what do you think? Well, we know we're consciousness in a body. We know we come and go because we have this obvious cycles of birth and deaths. We're connected to source so that individualized, it's like with our experiences that we both have had. We're individuated, yet we feel like we're in this unity field, right? We're
hmm,
part of something greater than we are, yet we have an individual functionality in
yep,
that, which means that if we're connected to source, the God consciousness side of it would be infinite intelligence available for our specific needs as an
yep,
individual. And paying attention to that then opens up to the rest because you're looking at it from a collaborative place rather than a competitive place.
yes,
Now, how do you
exactly.
see, how would you reflect and maybe even um, interpret what I just said in your own way.
I mean, I was still going to answer the other question, but
Oh, well,
yeah.
continue. And
No,
so
no,
now
no,
you've got
no,
a
no, no.
segue
It's
between two that you can go from one to the other, right? Non-linearity,
yeah,
right? Let's do that.
yeah. No, but how everything got triggered by me uh, was simply the fact, I think, what I just said about this lesson from this book, that you can be the best possible person, but not necessarily salesperson or whatever it is that you want by being truly yourself. So
Authentic.
I had a question how to become, how do I know when I'm my true self? How do I know when I'm authentic? Because that's a big issue in this world at the moment. And it took me a lot of work at some stage in my life, and every day at the moment still it's fully integrated in my daily activities, how to remain a good person and trying to be as good
Mhm.
as I possibly can
So
every
it
day.
sounds full of self-examination.
Yes, it is self a full examination because I met from I was a child, a young child, when I looked at my parents, and especially my mom. Sorry, mom. I mean, you cannot follow this because you don't speak English anyway. But I mean, my mom was
You
always
gave her an
making
out.
little, my mom was always making little lies about this, about that. And I started to question her when I was 8 or 9. I said, Mom, why are you always lying? But I'm not lying. Yeah, yeah, but why are you saying this? But it's not like that. But I'm not lying. And I have the feeling that this comes from this period of near death as well. I have the feeling I can see right through most of the people if I would pay attention to that. Without they don't need to speak to me, I can simply see them. And everything what happens afterwards is a confirmation of the feeling that I got, and it's recreated into words, into vocabulary that I then can
Yeah.
express.
It's your
Uh,
feeling, right? The indigenous tribes talk about the three brain system, the gut, the heart, and the head. There's more, science has proven there's more neurosensors in the gut than there are in the brain now. So how do we
yeah,
connect with things? Through vibration. Where's that at? Solar plexus, right? Then
yes,
once you feel things like you were just talking about, you get that initial feeling, sense of where you're
yeah,
at. And then your second brain, your heart, says, okay, is this desirable, undesirable? What do I do with it? Not necessarily what do I do with it. You just determine whether it resonates and to what degree.
yeah,
And then your supercomputer sitting on top of your shoulders can go, oh, here's what we're going to do with that, right? Rather
yeah,
than come from a fear-based place in our thinking and project what we believe down into our body and then wonder why we're diseased.
yeah. So it's in comments, and this is how it started. And then throughout later on my working life, being a consultant, especially when I was a consultant.
Mhm.
I have been SAP consultant for a number of years, and I worked for companies, especially in the beginning. Nobody really had a lot of experience with that system called SAP. So we were trained to say that we knew everything. We were always trained to say, yeah, 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 I know how to do that. Yeah, 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 I know to do that. And then the next step that you did, if you didn't know anything, you would call one of your colleagues or you would start looking not on the internet because the internet was not so up and running yet, just it started back then.
Right.
So you had no clue but to rely on your contacts to actually help sorting out the issues if you had an issue or a question to answer for your client. But everybody was always eager not to speak the truth, not to say, yeah, sure, I will try to answer the question. At the moment, I don't know the answer, but I will check with my colleagues. You were
Sure.
not allowed to say those things. And I always tried to be as honest as I possibly could until I start to realize, but I don't want to do this. This is just a stupid game. I don't, why can't we not be adults and simply saying that we don't know, but we can figure it out? And and that's the end of it. Or
Oh,
we
but we
don't
can't
know.
admit that we don't have the answers.
Yeah,
We're
yeah,
supposed to have
yeah.
the answers, right? Well,
But this
part of
was
that
this was really
leadership.
it. This was really, really, really what was bothering me. And this, did this then in this entire project situation, because of course it has to go from bad to worse before you're able to really start doing something about it. And so
Sure.
in this project situation, there's always time, budget, and quality. These are the three things that are making up a project successful or good or bad or whatever it is. So if
Right.
one of the things, budget is under pressure, it means quality is under pressure, it means timeline is under pressure. If the timeline is under pressure, it means budget is under pressure, it means quality. It's these three that are
Hmm.
producing always this huge tension, and that is then an extra environment where people start to play politics, where people start to do all kinds of things that one should not do. Then
Sure.
consultants become the external party, and clients become the very demanding party. They want the
I can
quality.
certainly relate to that.
Yeah,
For years, I
and
spent a couple of decades as a partnering facilitator for building road and bridge construction projects, 2 to 5 year long. And so the big thing on those, time, budget, safety,
mhm,
and issue resolution. So these partnering sessions were mainly focused on looking at where the contractors and subs, and this could be 20 people, could be 80 people in a room to
yeah, yeah, yeah,
the size of the project, right? And so you're looking for where they see problems in the specs and being able
yeah,
to fulfill that and having issue resolution plans in place so that when that particular issue shows up in that contiguous schedule, they've got a solution for it. So there's no work stoppage. And
yeah,
in those industries, as an hour of work stoppage could be 10 grand, could be 100 grand, depending
yeah,
on, you know, so you don't want to have that. Same thing. With the longer projects, you've got a little better, I think, maybe you have a little better opportunity to look at
mm,
things without so much emotional turmoil as opposed to the short-term projects that where you've got the deadlines and commitments that are much more of a short range, so you feel more um, imposed upon to get it right.
yeah. No, that's correct. And and then at some stage, I was very grateful that my journey went all the way to New Zealand, where I had the best and the worst experiences in my work. But then I also but then I also realized that when I came back as for the first time being just a one-man show, a person, an independent contractor, becoming part of a team for my specialism, there I realized a lot of things have changed and people knew me, started to know me in New Zealand. And I felt that for the biggest part, I could be me. For
Hmm.
the biggest part, I could sing. I was a guy who liked singing. I cannot really sing or so, but there was always moments where I started, you're working in a project team and you start to sing. Why? I like to express myself, even if I concentrate.
Isn't that really
So
cool? Right. I
so
want to focus on that just a sec because I do it too. Right. I
uh,
sing, I
ah
whistle. I don't even
yeah,
realize I'm doing it. It just happens. Right.
yeah,
And
exactly.
is
It
that
just
part of the
happens.
joy that you feel in process because,
Yep,
you're like, you're raising the good vibe. You're
exactly.
engaged with it.
So there in that country on several projects, I worked with a group of people. They fully accepted that. They made like Wednesday Rob Singing Day. I mean,
That's awesome.
I mean, it was just how it
Well,
was.
it's in a
So
way to
from that
incorporate
perspective,
celebration, right? You're celebrating as you're engaging that. It
yeah.
gives you a way to include.
But for me, the big thing was that I realized when I'm not under command from anybody, when I'm not part of a company, where I don't need to do what other people say, but I can be me, I do better than being part of that whole as a company. Because I don't need to lie, I'm me. I'm having my responsibilities. I was independent. So if somebody came to me and said, "Hey, can you fix this for me?" So, well, I don't know what it is. Let me have a look and I will come back to you. And I was, yeah, sure. Okay, you have also more experience, so you start to know how it works. But I would never ever lie to a client if I could not do something that I thought I could not do. I would never say, "Yeah, sure, I will do it." No,
Sure.
I would say, so, no, sorry, I can't.
Would you say that's the difference between being independent, perhaps interdependent, rather than codependent?
Yeah,
Because it's usually in that codependent framework that we feel like we have to tell the other what they want to hear, which is usually not the truth.
exactly. Exactly.
How do
So,
you evolve those kinds of situations? Because I know in work groups and organizations that there may be a few that recognize that, right? The majority are still in that lower energy place where they're feeling competitive or
yeah,
job security is a factor. Uh, how do
absolutely.
you see that evolving and how are you massaging that evolution within organizations?
So, so that is the big jump. So we leave New Zealand behind. I was in New Zealand for sharing a little bit what happened there with me because that was the big revolution basically of me. That there there was the basis for all the changes that are happening now and that I'm provoking now inside organizations and individuals. So if I can just elaborate just very briefly about New Zealand still before I
Sure.
answer that question, that would be good. So in New Zealand, I
Gotta know the
mean,
facts, right?
I, I
Partial
got
information doesn't work because it leaves too much for assumption, right?
in New Zealand, I got really stuck in my work, but I met this great guy, a Maori native man. And the first time I spoke with him, he shared with me, it was in a bar, he shared with me that he had been waiting for me. He had had a vision a couple of years before he met me, and for two times he already thought that he met me, but it was the wrong person. He said, but now all the signs are there. He believed obviously very much in that. He said, I need to be with you and we need to spend time together because I have to show you stuff. And it took a couple of weeks before before he made me before he informed me what it then was. He just literally said, if you agree, he said, I am going to teach you everything I know about my world. I said, and which world is that? And then he smiled. He said, which world do you think it is? And
Hmm.
he said, don't be so like not knowing. He said, the fact that I have a vision means that somebody has asked something, right? And I had no clue what he was talking about. You know, I was still very, very green at that time. We're talking 2004.
Right.
And
Not
and
realizing you put the request in the queue
no,
sometime
no, no,
before.
exactly, exactly. So, and then I went for 2 years in a roller coaster. I mean, I'm not gonna go into too much detail, but the guy reconnected me with myself through nature.
Mhm.
He learned me the most obvious thing that most of human beings have forgotten, that we are nature,
Yes.
and we are not. Uh, I
We're
mean,
not
yes, we
separate.
we are part of it. Basically, what people say we are, yeah, but we are human nature. Human nature is different than nature. And then today I can clearly say human beings are an expression of nature. I mean,
Absolutely.
this is what we are and nothing else. And on top of that, we are constructed, our building blocks are little quarks and electrons and neutrons and protons and atoms and molecules. And so we are pure energy.
Hmm.
And so this guy took me for 2 years on a journey to reconnect me fully with nature in the most basic way and a more elevated ways. He brought me completely into the invisible world of energy. How he basically taught me, yeah, you can hit somebody physically in the face, but it's gonna hurt you.
Yeah.
I said, because this is what people need to
Because they're another
understand.
you. This is my opening phrase is Namaste and In Lak'ech. In Lak'ech is a Mayan. It's a shortened
Exactly.
phrase from In Lak'ech Alakin, and it simply means I'm another you. So why would I want to hurt you? Why would I want
So
to hurt
all,
me? Right?
yeah. So all those things I learned by experience, and I'm not sure if we have time just to share one tiny little experience, which was still one of my most practical eye openers, because in that time, in well, before I came to New Zealand, and also in the time I was in the beginning in New Zealand, working for this big employer, I still had a lot of headaches coming up, and they came and they went. It was not all day like a nagging pain, but I got a headache,
Sure. Well, it's hard to
and
imagine,
then I
here
felt
you
like
are
taking
working in a corporate environment in a huge, arena, and then simultaneously you're having this totally different experience, almost the opposite of the environment that you're in, and bridging those two. That had to have been fascinating. So, please, I'm so curious.
so then my friend he he called me at some stage. I only met him 2 months. I only knew him for 2 months, and he called me one time in the morning. I was at work. He was, I think, waking up somewhere, and he said, "What's happening, bro?" I said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Are you okay?" I said, "Well, I'm at work. You know what I think about work. I mean, well, it is what it is." I said, "Yeah, but are you in pain or so?" And I said, "Well, now that you mention it, I'm having a headache." I said, and then he said, "I." So like, well, yes, I know, you know. And I said, "But is that why you're calling?" I said, "Oh, really? You're calling because of that?" I said, "Yes, it's time for a next lesson, bro." I said, "Do you have a couple of minutes?" I said, "Yes, sure." I said, we started to talk about energy and how things are working and how everything is interconnected and how we are all the same. I said, "Today, I will prove it to you." He said, I said, "Oh, really?" I said, "So I shouldn't go and get a paracetamol right now?" I said, "No, no, no, wait for a second. Wait for a second." So let's first start with the easy stuff. He said, "First of all, you have a headache, right?" "Yes, I know it's a headache. It's my headache. It's in my head. It hurts." He said, "What if I told you that this headache is not yours?" I said, "What the fuck? What do you mean? It is my headache. I feel it. It hurts." "Yeah, yeah, 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 yeah. I understand that you have pain and that's a headache. What I'm trying to say is that this headache is not really produced by you as a person. Somebody has given it to you. Most likely not consciously, most likely not purposefully, but this person has given it to you." But what are you talking about, bro? I said, "Well, just, people that you know very well, like your parents, your brother, your sister, very good colleagues, good friends. You create strong, energetic relationships with them. And they could become so strong, you could see that as a little a little road, like a gravel road. You could see it like
Mhm.
like a normal concrete road where
Right.
people can drive faster. You can see it like a highway. You can see it with a highway with 10 lanes. I mean, it just depends on the relationship and the
Yeah.
intensity of
Some people call
contact.
them psychic cords.
Yeah, yeah. So he called them for me energy cords. He said, "I call those energy cords. And this is a way of communicating as well. But we are completely ignorant to this type of communication. But I bet that there is somebody in your direct neighborhood who produces this headache for you. Because after all, this headache, you don't have it all day, right? I said, no, no, no. It appeared like 10 minutes ago, just like that. And you often have this type of headaches. Yes, then I'm pretty sure you're not a lost case. You can live without medication from now onwards, just by following the following steps. I said, so what do I need to do? He said, well, you simply think for a moment who it could be that provided this headache to you. I said, but what do you mean? I said, well, he said, just think about it. First, believe that this headache is not yours, that somebody is around there that is strongly connected to you, who is potentially worried, who is potentially having her or his thoughts focused on you. Could be really anything it doesn't need to be bad, but it could be a worry, it could be anything, but it produces simply this pressure that causes the headache.
Hmm. Some
And
kind of constraint placed
if
upon
you if you find this person, you can just simply ask the person in your thoughts or by speaking it out loud. I would recommend thinking it because you're at work. in case
Otherwise,
it's
then
in
you're
case
going to
it's
go back to
somebody.
that place where you're weird, you're insane, you're crazy, right? And you get
Yeah,
this kind
yeah,
of
yeah,
reflection
exactly.
from, yeah.
Yeah. So please let's do the trick. So you go back in your mind, think about which name is popping up, and before you find a name, think about the person you thought before you found the name, because that's probably going to be the person that actually gives you the headache, not the person you're really thinking of. It's before. You have to
Mhm.
get to the before of your thoughts. You have to try to get just before of that. And then when you
Because we tend to want
have,
to place, and I love how Rilke put this, don't answer the questions that you have. Let life answer them because we want to
exactly,
project answers based on our own thinking and our awareness and knowledge at the time.
exactly.
Doesn't always fit.
No. So he said, so that is step one. And then step two is just allow this person to stop doing what he or she is doing. And as a last step, you can simply usually I click my fingers, just like stop it, let the headache go away, and don't do this again. And that's all. He said, and you will see that instantly, not after 10 seconds, not after 20 seconds, not after a minute, but instantly, your headache disappears as long as it was the person that gave it to you. And I said, get the fuck out of here, man. This is ridiculous. I said, well, I'll just do it. And I said, no, sorry, I really need to hang up now. I said, they're really, I said, come on, do it. I said, okay, okay, okay.
Oh
I said,
man,
but
he's pushing you out of your comfort zone, huh?
so far, and I'm at work. I'm on the phone. There's, and you have those offices where you have still this little
The
cubicle. Not
cubicles.
really. It's not full cubicles. They were like lower little walls. So if you would go up a little bit, you could see right away.
Right.
The
Yeah.
others.
I had one
So
of
so
those in the
so
aerospace
I was
industry.
just going down, down in my chair, just so talking.
Yeah.
And I really felt like Neo in the Matrix, part one. There was also IT company. I was working for this big IT company. And so I did it and
So
it
you're getting the
worked.
message to sneak out and go out the window and stand on the ledge.
Basically, the first time I got fired was with that company afterwards. So it was quite similar. I really lived a similar life as Neo in the beginning.
Sure.
But yeah, I applied the things and it worked. And each time I got headaches, sometimes I was wrong. I tried it again and it worked. And what does the beautiful brain do? I had tons of headaches, in 2003, 2002, 2001, tons of headaches, and 2004 as well, until that moment. And I never had them again.
Hmm.
I practiced, and the brain picks up. It becomes an automated thing. So somehow Your entire belief system has changed, dramatically changed suddenly. Everything has changed inside you. Everything reacts differently. Everything experiences everything differently, and it stops. The only way that I get headaches is if I would drink too much alcohol,
Huh.
or or I would literally
Then you
hit
would
my
cause them
head,
yourself, right? Not from
or
others.
yeah, or I would
Uh,
literally hit my head against the wall, you know. So that was that moment that was so defining. It was a very tiny little thing in the end, but it helped me. It you know, it's
Isn't that how, the subtle changes, the almost imperceivable shifts that are like perspective change, right? You're looking at a drawing, you change the angle of perspective, and all of a sudden, what you're seeing completely changes. And what I find, how do you find the shift in like the belief system, right? So that's perception that you're
yeah,
going to look for
yeah,
based on your belief system. Now, which is your perspective.
yeah,
Now, if you shift your perspective, suspend your belief system, let's say, for just a moment, to try something new like you did, you found out it worked. And so your perspective automatically changed because now you had proof, evidence of the value in changing your perspective.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
How do you
Absolutely.
find that process? Because right now you're preparing to take this work and these opportunities, this understanding to a larger number of people from multiple countries in one location,
Yeah, yeah,
and which is
exactly.
phenomenal. And congratulations that
Uh,
the universe has finally said, "Flo, you're ready," right?
yeah,
So,
yeah.
and I honor that, man. I that is so precious and so rewarding, and I know you'll do great with it. How are you going to take this understanding and offer the precepts in understandable ways to others who probably by and large have been caught in that command and control module or cubicle, right, for a while, and you're trying to lower the walls? How do you think that can happen? What do you find has worked for you with others in the past, and are there additional ways you're considering that might work even better?
Uh, well, I mean, I guess one of the things that I came to realize at some stage in my life is that I could I could do all the things that somebody asked from me and more, and execute it well. And yet there was nothing afterwards. There was no satisfaction. It was just work. It just left me exhausted at
Hmm.
some stage. And when they see you can do all that, they give you more. And
Oh,
when they
sure.
see that
Busy
you
people
do
get
all
stuff
that,
done, right?
and I guess that's where the big thing is. I'm going to do soon a presentation. Some guy gave me this title that I'm going to abuse, the business of being. Recently, I'm going to do a short presentation, and then this is everything what it is about to me. We have become human doings. I
Yeah.
mean, our society, our educational system, our parents, even subconsciously being all part of the same thing. We have become human doings, and
Mhm.
it's time that we take back what we truly are. We are human beings, and this is going to be my entire dialogue in that presentation. This will start become my dialogue in the workshops that I'm going to do for 16 countries and leadership, as you just mentioned. I said this is going to be the basis. So I'm going to start with doing, and I'm going to potentially,
You're going to
not
step in a bunch of doo-doo, aren't you?
ask around with people. So what do they feel when they do? What do they feel when they do so much? What do they? feel? What do they feel in their energy level? What do they feel in, all kinds of stuff? And for sure today, I'm pretty sure what the answers are going to be. And so then I can make the emphasis of human doing to human being. And then I'm going to ask them potentially a question. Do you know what a human being is? Do you know what it means to you? What does it mean, human being? For I mean, probably it's going to be like driving the entire workshop that I'm going to organize at a high level, this feeling of being and doing. And you don't need to become a human being, but you cannot be a human doing without human being. I
Sure.
mean, the moment you realize what you as a human being can contribute to the table to make doing worthwhile, that's just amazing. That is the change
Yeah,
of
it sounds like you're
everything.
flipping Maslow's hierarchy upside down,
Well,
right?
it's
Because
a little bit more because there's an extra dimension in there that I'm not sure if I would be able to share with the people, because being and doing are two separate things, but being and being aligned with your internal being, that is again something.
are they two separate things, or
Well,
is it
no,
dependent on the order? Because if you're doing without the being, then it would seem that there's a separation
no,
of
no, no,
things.
no, no, but no, but it's just like, I mean, it's just the doing and being separate, but not separate within the human being, right?
Right. Well, this is where I was going to ask. Is it
No,
more
it's doing
that
like
being?
tasks. It's doing is the task, and being is the state of the person when doing the tasks,
Okay.
right?
Could it be
So
possible in today's world with all of this shift that's taking place and people looking for passion, purpose, mission now because the old ways haven't been fulfilling, right? Like you're talking about, it's not
yeah.
fulfilling to do and do and do and not be at least acknowledged, right? Or feel like there's some kind of reciprocal energy being given back to you. Whereas when you're being, you're flipping that Maslow's hierarchy, if you will, and adding another dimension of self-realization rather than just self-actualization. And you start from that place of being connected and then asking how to integrate that with your doing or how to
Well,
integrate the doing with your being, finding that passion and purpose and leaving where you are if the boundaries have gotten you pushed to the point where you're like, this doesn't feel like me anymore. Where can I go? Right? How do you move from that place?
well, I mean, first of all, I think that if you are truly being, which means to me, if you are fully aligned with your energy being,
Hmm.
internal being, divine being, uh, God conscious, whatever it is that people call, but if you're truly aligned to that being, you experience at least the things like contentment, joy, love, whatever it is that comes to mind. And when you are in this state of being, the doing is is automated. It's the flow. We're talking about flow
Right.
here, but the flow in the purest form, right? So there's no need for too much consciousness there if you are so conscious
Hmm.
about your being.
Do you
And
find
one of
in
and
that
one
being,
and one of the most beautiful things that I would like to say about that state of being, especially for businesses and organizations, because that's going to be one of the core outcomes, is that
absolutely.
every individual is not wasting any energy. Any individual is not being drained. People remain, they keep their energy, they're keeping their high energy, their high vibration.
Hmm.
Work becomes easy. And when work becomes easy as a collective consciousness, as an organization as well, right? I mean, you can talk about an organization as it's a collective of human beings, specific purpose.
Sure.
Problem these days is that the purpose is not a specific purpose. People have hidden agendas. There's different purposes. There's all kinds of these things going on. But
Right.
let's say for a second that if we are talking about a company with one specific purpose and everybody is there as a collective to honor that purpose, to serve that purpose, then it means this organization, collective energy, this organization is going to glow through the roofs, through the
Sure.
walls, through everything. And this will bring everything that anybody can possibly need because
And that's a
this is
change in
just
culture.
it's a change in company culture. It's just a change of probably the entire company because nobody will recognize this company anymore if this truly happens. Right now we are in a situation of the opposite. You have some people that may be having this high vibration that are aligned with their being, doing their work, f fighting against 90% of people that are feeling just hopeless or feeling miserable and they're doing their work just for as a job for the paycheck because nobody's listening to them anyway. Managers, middle management is not being heard either. They know the real issues, but higher management have their own agendas instead of the true purpose that everybody else on the bottom is working for, and you have a mess. So the total experience become rather a lower energy because everything is condemned to doing. Because when we execute something with this lower vibration, it drains a lot of energy. We have to remember that our emotions, our feelings are our compass for getting higher up the scale. And that's the only point of reference that we have as human beings.
That is a perfect key point that you just stated. And I hope that our audience can can key into it as well, because that is what drives us. It's energy in motion, our emotion. We
Yeah.
sense, we feel, we are moved by. And the more we are moved by it organizationally, then you get to a place where, and I love this, happy people get more done with less supervision and will exceed expectations every time.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So then the only things, and therefore I think I found my new calling as I would like to call myself still some kind of change management lead, an organizational change management lead. I do have some expertise with what goes wrong in organizations. I do have some expertise how you create from vision, mission, strategy, objectives,
Well, you've
and
been on
all the
both ends. You've
shebang.
been at the core of the project management of the things that produce all of that. You've been in
So,
the
so
trenches.
so now we have to turn it around or turn around the Maslow pyramid, as you say, but we have to turn it around. We have to start saying, how are we going to be? How are we going to be together? What is the most important thing?
Yeah, I love
Are we
sharp.
the motor? Are we the motor? What are we? We are the energy. Literally, we are the energy of the organization. We're always on. So let's not to pretend not to be on. We are always on. So we have to be very, very careful how we are on when we are doing stuff.
Mhm. Absolutely.
Unless
Um,
we are happy and joyful, then we don't care because then we are doing the right thing.
and you're more open to working together. You know, I love Otto Scharmer's work and Peter Senge helped him out as well. In it was some coursework I took through MIT that it was called the Transforming Business Society and Self, and it was built around this U theory, right?
Mm,
Which is, you get people together, you establish that intellectually humble and psychologically safe environment for people to open up and be authentic and speak. And then you bring that into this, they call it co-presencing, right? Where you're
mm,
all in this same space that's open, that's vulnerable, that's curious. and then you build prototypes to meet the solutions or the challenges that are being faced. And I find it an impeccable way, uncomfortable, I'm sure, because people are not used to sharing, to being vulnerable, to
Yep.
not having someone be highly critical of them just because they think or feel differently.
Yeah. So we have to do a lot of work also in terms of, reward structures and this type of thing. People should not feel afraid to share and to
Mhm.
show themselves how they truly are. And at the moment, we learn not to do that because nobody ever should feel that I'm feeling afraid or that I'm feeling
Oh, it seems like nobody
inadequate.
cares,
Because
right?
I think at the moment, you're absolutely right. 10 years ago, people still cared and people were hiding. Now, people don't seem to care too much anymore. People are fed up and people have no clue what to do, how to bail out, because they are attached to all kinds of other commitments. Most of the time, financial commitments due to their families, due to mortgages, due to whatever it is that they got got involved in. So they have no way out. They feel like they are trapped completely.
Well, let's
And
open the door for him, right? We're coming close to time. So let's
yep.
get a way out. What would you recommend, advise one who finds themselves in this conflicted internal space of being inauthentic or feeling like they're being inauthentic? What do you think today would help them have that single piece, that thread, that breadcrumb that could take them into that initial part of a journey to their authentic self?
It's a very tough question because
Mhm.
it's partially depending on where people are at their emotional ladder in this entire adventure as well. I mean, because if they are quite low on the ladder, I mean, if they are depressed, for example, probably a big step forward is becoming angry as an emotion. That's a
Sure.
big step. That's a
And don't
leap
stifle.
forward.
This is the thing, and I'm glad you brought this up because we tend to stifle our emotions rather than let them be present so that we can navigate through them.
So what I would recommend is one way or another just to try to see what happens when you really take the time and to make a walk far away from this area, this environment that brings you all this frustration, this irritation, this sadness, maybe this depressed feelings. And there's usually always one place, and it's called nature. I mean, and I just remembered I shared we are nature, so it should be good enough to be under the people as well. But
Sure.
in this particular case, I would highly recommend to go to the other part of nature, the trees, a lake. If you are close to the ocean, the ocean. If you're close to the mountains, make a weekend trip to the mountains and try to be with yourself. And when thoughts are coming, let them come and let it go and let it go. And at some stage, you're gonna feel calmer and you're gonna realize, hey, why do I always feel better when I am in nature? Because we are nature.
Hmm.
I mean, I mean, people need to make, at the end of the day, they need to make a mind shift. They need to make
Sure.
a big shift of perspective when they realize, when they start to believe that they are nature or that they are built of energy blocks, then things start to make sense. But
Sure.
before that time, it's really something else. It's a process of listening to others, how others reflect on the situation. But know this, people. And that is for the octopus movement a little bit. If we are trying to solve the things today in the same way as we have always done, we're not going to solve those challenges anymore. The challenges have become too big. The challenges need another reality. And in order to find this other reality, we have to start opening up. We have to start becoming curious. We have to start to listen to ourselves, to how we feel. Are we truly happy? Are we truly frustrated? And if we are truly frustrated, walk that path and acknowledge that you're frustrated. Let it all go. Let it all come out. And when your frustration leaves you, what are you feeling then? Are you feeling still sadness? Are you feeling fear? I mean, let the fear come out. Walk the path of your emotion because it is your only guide. It is your only guide. And in the end, you will see that only with different ways of thinking we can start solving this process. It's the natural evolution of mankind that we're into right now.
I absolutely agree with that and live in that. In my opinion, going back to the betas, um, if we're looking at that inner and outer bridge, you're talking for one level like a solar frequency that we have in the consciousness that we carry. And then we've
Yep,
also got the genetic codes that provide our physical structure. The only thing that we have choice in is how we think.
yep,
And in doing that, we can adjust how tuned in we are with
yep,
nature and recognize that. And the question came up. So you're out in nature, you've taken your break, right? You realize in nature, it seems that you're more present, right? You're not thinking about the past, you're not thinking about the future. You're present. Lao Tzu says if you're in the past or the future, you're stressed, you're not in the present, right? So
yep, yeah.
being in the present, then, do you find that what needs to be done is generally right in front of you? You just haven't seen it because you've been looking beyond it?
Well, I believe so. I would say in my in my own experience, it definitely has been. As a Dutch person originally, we have grown up to look at the future. We're
Mhm.
always busy. We are always have been busy with the future. History, past was not so important. But only if we do crappy stuff in the past, it haunts us forever because we're worried about it in the present, and we're worried
And we
even
carry
about it
so
what it
much
haunts in the
baggage
present.
with it.
Yeah, exactly.
So much baggage, and we don't realize, there's not even carry-ons on this flight.
Yeah. But when you are able to separate all that and when you are in the presence, that's just the most beautiful thing because everybody is adaptable and changeable in the present. Everything, everything. And a smile will come on your face the moment you realize that. That has to be.
Big smiles for everyone. Floris, this has just been a phenomenal conversation. I really loved how we went through this transformative process that is available for everybody. And the way that you've expressed it, the insights you provided, the wisdom and the simplicity of the activities. Um, I know that that's going to tremendously benefit our audience and me too.
Well, I hope so. I mean, it was a pleasure to be part of this. I mean, really, I love to speak about it, especially in a safe space where I know that people are listening and people are not afraid to actually try things. And because one of those things that I came to understand and came to experience as well in the past that I've tried to help people with those little tricks that I've been sharing
Mhm.
about how to get rid of headaches. That you can ask the people to show up, and the people will show up when they give you a headache or a back pain or whatever it is. It's not just for the headaches; it's for
Oh,
any
whatever
ache.
you ask for will show up. So be careful what you ask for.
So if you have a lower
Right.
back pain suddenly appearing, I mean that's most likely somebody else potentially at your work that gives you a huge amount of stress. So that could be really happening at your work. So that's huge. But I tried to help a person in my work in the past for that, and he just laughed in my face, and he just said literally, "I will stop talking to you only when I have to from my manager."
I know, and it's so sad, the
Well, it's
closed-mindedness
It was 10
that
years
is so
ago, more or
prevalent.
less. So,
Yeah.
but that was the
I don't
last
know
time I
that it's
spoke with him.
changed all that much. I think our conversation is definitely in the upper half a percent of people who could even, not that we're that special, right? We've just gone through the trials and tribulations and stumbled and fallen and gotten back up enough times that we realize certain things to be true.
Yep,
And it's just the desire to share that so that we can help others experience joy and happiness in their own lives, wherever they
exactly.
are, whatever they're doing.
And the most beautiful thing is, since you talked about this workshop for me, whatever they're gonna get, whatever they're going to learn, whatever they're gonna walk away with, they can apply it just instantly. And it's not for their work, it's just for their lives, right? I mean,
Well, that's
it's,
the thing. Everything's cross-referenceable, right?
I mean, I have to make it work related in this particular sentence, but it's nothing
Absolutely.
to do with work. It's just life.
Well, and work and life really aren't separate. We believe them to be. We're one being. We go everywhere. Whatever we do anywhere, we do everywhere.
Yeah.
And
Also
so,
there, you see, also there, I was so privileged, because also there, thanks to the fact that I was moving from one place to the other over 4 continents, I never have seen my work as my work because it was always part of moving. It was always part of this great experience of discovering a new country. So for
right,
me, my work was always part of my life, and I feel really blessed because of that. And the other thing that I would still would like to share in this, I also never felt attached to anything because again about all these times that I have been moving.
mhm,
I feel I'm not materialistic at all in any sense, in any way, because I dealt with filling up houses, apartments, and selling it off again so often in my life that whatever it is that I crave should be just in the end something nice to have for me or good for my body, one of the two.
right,
you know,
right,
and one is not necessarily the same as the other. But but there's nothing else. There's no houses to chase. There's no cars to chase. There's no nice furniture to chase. There's no nice clothes to chase. I'm not saying I don't like it, but it doesn't do anything to me. It really stopped doing anything to me. There's no meaning in it. It's just meaningless, really. And I'm also very blessed for that, for having this life. And all those dots that I'm combining, that's one of the last things that I would like to say to the people that feel really, really, really stuck. Just look back for a couple of years and remember the things you have said then 3 years ago, 5 years ago, and look back where you are right now. You will see some progress one way or another. You just have to connect those dots.
absolutely.
Take the
Perfect.
time to reflect. Anyway, yeah.
Great way to end. Loris, again, thank you so much for being here. I've really
Thank you
enjoyed
for
it.
having me. Yeah.
Namaste and in la catch. And thank you all for sticking with us throughout this conversation. I'm sure you got a lot out of it. I know we both did.
Yes.
And I will see you next time.
In la catch.